Man, by the end of this story, you will genuinely fear for your own generation, or at least my generation. Today, we got a story time of a Gen Z kid who thinks math works a little bit differently than it actually works. Yes, the Gen Z kid saw on TikTok proof that 1 plus 1 actually equals 3 guys, and he is very convinced of the fact, and he tries to insult his teacher for being such an idiot for thinking 1 plus 1 actually equals 2. This is a pretty funny story that I know you will enjoy, so sit back, relax, subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video right now to claim your very own free nothing. Going once, going twice, sold to the person who left a like on the video. And with that all being said, let's just jump right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who submitted this story Alex. So anyways, right, Alex, he had a kid in his class who we're going to call the Gen Z kid. And this kid had been notorious for being extremely gullible. They were in 6th grade when this story time happened. But all the way back in, 3rd grade, the gullible kid, basically everyone convinced him, every couple days, they convinced him that gullible was written on the ceiling. Look, I'm not going to pretend like I haven't fallen for one of those traps where it's just like, oh my God, like who wrote gullible on the ceiling? And if you said it really matter of fact and I was young enough, I think I would look up. So I'm not going to try and put myself in some I would never look up at gullible written on the ceiling type pedestal. But at the same time, this kid literally like 3 days later, right? Another kid would say it and he'd look up again. The next freaking day, someone would say, dude, someone wrote gullible on the ceiling, and he would look up again and they'd clown him, right? So it's like, I get it if it happens once, but every single day, every day you keep looking up? Huh? You know what I mean? So yeah, this kid has had a history of being susceptible to stuff like this. Yeah, so this kid had recently found TikTok. TikTok is very much the place that, the Gen Z kids go. If you're a Gen Z kid, and when I say Gen Z kid, I gotta let you know, that just kind of just means the people who are on Twitter every 5 seconds and are like, I'm going to cancel you for eating bread. And the people who are on TikTok 25 hours a day, and that's where they get their research from. Those are the Gen Z kids. The only person that you're allowed to follow on TikTok is me, because I do have a TikTok account. It's at Connor Pugs. I have about 11K on there. Actually, if you do use TikTok, go ahead and follow me on there. You won't be a Gen Z kid if you do. I would just like the follows. But anyways, right, sure enough, this kid had recently found TikTok. And, I'm not going to lie, TikTok is pretty addicting. I've actually recently just stopped using it because I've replaced it with Instagram Reels, which I know I'm a boomer now. I use Instagram Reels. Dude, the memes on there are just so much better. Anyways, though, so the Gen Z kid had been he's been on TikTok for like 25 hours a day. And if you don't know, there's a lot of like fake news and misinformation and just a lot of like cap basically on TikTok. TikTok is the central of cap. Yeah, so anyways, right, the Gen Z kid had found himself down a lot of rabbit holes. And there's been a lot of other story times of Gen Z kids falling down these TikTok rabbit holes. Like there's a story that was submitted to me that I actually have posted up a couple months ago of a Gen Z kid who was convinced by TikTok that snow was not real and the sun was fake and all that type of stuff. But today, one day, what all seemed like a normal day, the subscriber Alex was walking into class. And he sits down, and the Gen Z kid sits down right next to him. This is a math class, by the way. In 6th grade, you're probably doing some like Algebra 1, maybe. I don't really know what you're doing in 6th grade. Maybe some pre-algebra. I don't really know. Anyways, though, so sure enough, right, he sits down, and the Gen Z kid sits down next to him, and the first thing he says is he leans over, and he whispers, everything you've been told about math is a lie. And the subscriber, Alex, looks over at him with this kind of blank face of like, bro, I'm not trying to be on the Gen Z kid nonsense wave today. That's just not what I'm trying to do. Yeah, so sure enough, right, the subscriber, Alex, is kind of just like, bro, I'm not trying to deal with this. What do you mean all of math is not real, bro? Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah, you're going to tell me. Okay, Stephen Hawking. Okay, Albert Einstein. Thank you so much for your input. Super useful and super real. Thanks. So the Gen Z kid's like, dude, I was watching this video on TikTok, and immediately, right, the subscriber, Alex, is like, okay, cool. Good to know I'm not actually going to pay attention to a word you're about to say because you just preference it with I got this information off of TikTok. Okay, I'm pretty confidently not going to pay attention to a word you're going to say now. So thank you very much for making sure that I don't waste my time. Thank you. So yeah, sure enough, right, the subscriber kind of glazes his eyes a little bit, and the Gen Z kid goes on to be like, there's a super smart math wizard, and he was on TikTok, and he was writing down all these symbols and squiggly lines, and by the end of it, dude, he proved that 1 plus 1 actually equals 3, dude. I don't know what to do. So I don't know. I actually think, funny enough, I actually think I've seen this before. So there is like a way to do like a quote unquote math proof that shows that 1 plus 1 actually equals 3. The problem is, I forgot exactly what it was, but there's some kind of like tricky arithmetic error that's very hard to see and very easily is like hidden and difficult. So I don't totally blame the Gen Z kid for believing it here because it's actually kind of a pretty good, it's a pretty good trick. But at the same time, man, if I saw that trick, I wouldn't start believing that 1 plus 1 genuinely equals 3. I'd just be like, wow, like the math world's a little more complicated than I thought. I wouldn't go into class and be like, teacher, you idiot. How dare you think 1 plus 1 equals 2? How do you even teach here? You're definitely not qualified. Yeah, so sure enough, right, the subscribers kind of just like looking at the Gen Z kid. And the Gen Z kid is like, I saw it on TikTok, and they were like multiplying and adding stuff like what we do. And dude, 1 plus 1 actually equals 3. And the subscriber's like, okay, man. So immediately the Gen Z kid turns over and like whispers the same thing. Math is a lie, dude. 1 plus 1 equals 3. To the kid next to him. The kid next to him just gives him this long stare. And then just turns back to what he's doing, like completely ignoring the kid. And the subscriber's just like, oh boy, right? Gen Z kid fell for another thing, like another day, like another Gen Z kid falling for an obvious prank. You know, you already know how it is. But that's when the Gen Z kid decides to raise their hand. So the Gen Z kid raises their hand pretty, high and is like, teacher. And the teacher's like, yes. And the Gen Z kid is like, I have a question for you about math. And the teacher's like, okay, well, we are in math class. So that sounds appropriate to me. What's your question? And the Gen Z kid is like, so I wanted to ask you, what is 1 plus 1? And the teacher kind of gives them a look of like, bro, we're in 6th grade right now. Do you really need help with 1 plus 1? Dude, that's like being in high school and you're in Spanish 4 honors, the most difficult and advanced Spanish class, and you go in on the first day and you're like, Teacher, I got a question. How do you say hello in Spanish? Like, bro, you're in the wrong class. If you're asking what's 1 plus 1 in your 6th grade math class, you may or may not be in the wrong math class. That's all I'm trying to say. So the teacher is kind of just like, I guess he was like waiting for the punchline because he was just so confused by the question, but he ends up just saying 2 because like, I think he just wanted to move on. He kind of probably thought it was like a stupid question. It was like, okay, why am I even like dealing with this? And the Gen Z kid starts laughing. Dude starts laughing freaking maniacally, bro. Like he is just laughing. He's like, oh my God, you're so stupid. Like he's just like freaking out and like, dude just called the teacher stupid. And the teacher's like, what? The teacher isn't even angry at this point because the teacher is just genuinely so confused. He's like, why is the Gen Z kid like falling out of his chair, buckling over, laughing like, oh my God, I can't believe he actually thinks 1 plus 1 equals 2. What an idiot. Right, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense at the moment. So yeah, sure enough, the teacher kind of just has this very like blank look on his face, like, bro's really doing all that, like, really? So sure enough, the Gen Z kid is like, oh my God, oh, that's a hilarious answer, teacher. What is your real answer to 1 plus 1? And the teacher's like, 2. It's very clearly 2. And then the Gen Z kid just buckles over and laughs again. Like, does the whole shtick again of like, oh my God, he actually thinks 1 plus 1 is 2, guys. Can you believe it? And like the Gen Z kid is like almost crying, laughing so hard, looking at other people. Everyone's super confused right now because, well, I think it's pretty obvious why they're confused. Yeah, so sure enough, right at this point, the Gen Z kid goes on to say, okay, guys, let me explain where my teacher is being super stupid and why he should even have a teaching job, because 1 plus 1 actually equals 3. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment door down below. That'll be the secret word of the day, so go ahead and comment door. I'll try and heart a bunch of those comments. And also, just real quick, if you use Spotify, make sure you listen to these stories on Spotify as well. I have an official page. The link is down below. And finally, if you want to submit your own story, as these are all subscriber-submitted stories, you can do so to either my Twitter or my Instagram. Both are at Connor Pugs. Both are verified. All you got to do is follow me and then send me a DM on both of those platforms or on either of those platforms. And yeah, that all being said, let's just jump right back into the story and see why the Gen Z kid has so confidently called out his teacher for being such an idiot for not realizing that 1 + 1 actually equals 3, guys. Yeah, so sure enough, right, the teacher is like the teacher doesn't know what to do, because imagine like getting clowned by one of your students for thinking that 1 + 1 equals 2. Oh my God, what a simpleton, right? So the teacher kind of doesn't know what to do, and he's kind of just chilling there. And the subscriber is kind of just sitting there like, what is going on? Like, what is life? Like, what even is happening right now? And yeah, so sure enough, the Gen Z kid's like, all right, teacher, step aside. And he goes up to the whiteboard. And the teacher, surprisingly, actually does step aside. I think the teacher, one, was like in enough shock of like what was happening. They just kind of let what happened happen. And I also think part of him was just genuinely curious to see where this kid was going to go. So the Gen Z kid's like, okay, guys, watch. And he goes on the chalk or the whiteboard, and he writes 1 + 1. He's like, can anyone answer this? And he looks around the room. And no one's going to raise their hand because they know they're going to, like, first of all, they're all going to say 2. And second of all, they all know that when they say 2, that he's going to be like, wrong, you stupid idiot. So the Gen Z kid's like, wow, okay, is this too hard of a problem for you guys? Well, don't worry, I'm a math genius, so I will take it from here. And he goes over and he writes 3. And the teacher's like, can you walk me through that? And the Gen Z kid's like, yes, obviously. So what you do is like so you're like taking 1 and you're just like adding it to 1, you get 3. And the teacher's like, yeah, that's what I don't get. How do you take 1 + 1, you get 3? He's like, Gen Z kid's like, it's obvious, idiot. And the teacher's like, okay, I don't like you calling me idiot. I don't like you calling me that. It's not respectful. I'm your teacher. Yeah, so the teacher at this point is like, well, can you tell me where you came up with that? And the subscriber's like, not the subscriber. The Gen Z kid's like, well, I saw it on TikTok, so it must be true. And the teacher's like, okay, can you show me the video? So the Gen Z kid goes back to his backpack, unzips it, takes out his phone, and finds the video, because I think he saved it or something. Teacher looks at it. He's like, yep, okay, yeah. So you see right there, and he points to like the part where in the proof where it's like they kind of like glance over something. I forgot exactly what it was. I think it might have been something with like rules of like PEMDAS or some parentheses or some kind of rule of algebraic principle that they broke, but it's not super obvious. So the thing is like when I saw this, it's actually a pretty interesting like proof, because it almost looks like it truly does prove it. However, it's not. And also, even if I saw this and I didn't find the error, I wouldn't be so confident as to go ahead and start screaming at my teacher that he's genuinely a buffoon for not knowing that 1 + 1 equals 3. So the teacher's like, oh, okay, well, this is kind of interesting, and he actually writes the whole thing out on the board. And he's like, all right, guys, so this is actually a good opportunity to show you like some rules of like algebra and like all that kind of stuff. So he goes through it, and then he says, all right, looks like 1 + 1 equals 3, right? Because he writes out the whole proof. The Gen Z kid is smiling. Like the widest smile from like tip to tip. He's like, yes, I've proven it. I'm correct. Yes. And then the teacher's like, so this actually looks like 1 + 1 equals 3, but it's not. And the Gen Z kid's like, what? And then the teacher goes through and like points out the line where there's an issue. Points out, okay, guys, so you actually can't be doing this, and that's why it doesn't work out. And the Gen Z kid's like, well, and the entire class is staring at him, because the Gen Z kid literally went up and called everyone, including the teacher, like a big dummy for not knowing 1 + 1 equals 3, and was trying to explain why he was a genius math wizard for knowing such. And the Gen Z kid's like, well, Whatever, man. And he like storms back. He like grabs his phone and storms back into his seat. Yeah, so after class, the teacher does actually pull the Gen Z kid aside saying like, yo, you cannot be calling me an idiot. You cannot be insulting people. Like, even if you were right, that's unacceptable. Kid got like, I don't know, extra homework the day or something. But yeah, it turns out not everything on TikTok is true. Shocker.